What's up, guys? What's going on, man? I am Paul. This is Pauline Theology's daily devotional with Trust in Jesus Ministries. We're in John, the Gospel of John, and we are coming after the witness of John the Baptist. And then, what is he a witness to? Well, we read in the previous episode that he was a witness to the light. And so now we're going to actually see kind of a definition of this light a little bit more. So if you haven't checked it out, go ahead and read John chapter 1, 9 through 13. And we're going to dive into it. Stop the tape, read and see what it has to say so that when you come to the tape, you'll have an understanding and you'll be able to just flow with me. So let's get it together. And if you've already read, then let's go ahead and jump into it, man. And the first question that we ask is what's going on in the scriptures. Well, we got it's saying that the word was the true light, or that the light was true. And this true is a genuine truth. It means like it's absolute truth. Scholars say it's the truth par excellence. That means the greatest truth, the best truth, the most truthful truth. If there could be expurlative, I think. I'm not sure how that word means, but it's like when you put and est or more and great. But anyway, it's that it could be the truest true, but that is what this light is. It is truth in its absolute sense. And it says that this truth shines on all men. Now, in the Greek, it's a little bit difficult to say where this prepositional phrase goes. And the phrase I'm talking about is just coming into the world. And so it could either be it's the light, this true light that comes into the world, or it could be that this true light shines on all men that come into the world. So all men that come into the world. And so I want to explain John again. We say that he does some stuff with words and phrases that are double entendres, where it can mean two things at one time, because John, I guess, is just such a wordsmith, man. He's a crafter of phrases and words to make them ambiguous, yet have the meaning that he intends as he continues to testify or to write his story. We saw that earlier when we see that the light or the world darkness could not overcome the light, or that the darkness could not understand the light. And John actually describes and talks about both of those things. And in the same way here, when he speaks about coming into the world, it is the true light that comes into the world, as we're going to see in verse 14, where it says that this true light, which we see as the word, is Jesus, who is incarnated to demonstrate the glory of God, the truth, or who God is in the world. But also it's a light that shines upon all men that come into the world. So everybody without, an idea is that it's every person without distinction, regardless of being Jew, Gentile, male, female, slave, free, as Paul talks about, is that this light shines upon everyone. It's important to understand both ways because we do see the incarnation and it's powerful. But it's also important for us to see the second way, that it shines upon all men, because it means that we have a understanding or a revelation or a knowledge of God in this world. And so that means we have to make a decision. We have to make a choice. And the light shines, and the light shines, but for some, it creates and stirs about anguish, hate, anger. And for others, it stirs in love, compassion, joy, and submission. And so the question is later on, I guess the application is, what are you doing with this light today? What are you doing with it? Anyway, it says that it's in the world. So if it was that the light is coming, well, now we see that it is firmly planted in this world. World is a term too that's tough, man. What are we talking about when we speak about the world? Are we talking about the planet? Well, we come to find here later on that world has maybe a more personal view, a more relational understanding. We all know that verse, right? And if you don't, I'm going to tell it to you. John 3:16, for God so loved the world. Well, world there is a relational word specifically in regards to the people who are in it. And so when it says he came into this world, it could be that he came on this planet, which of course he did, but more intimately that he was in the world of man, that he was in humanity, that he became part of creation. It says, and the world did not know him. We're going to define this a little bit more. It says that he came into this world, the world which he created, the creator of it, the master crafter, the one who instituted all these things. He says, because the world through him came into being. And it says, and he came into this world and they did not know him. Ooh, man, that's tough. That's tough. That's a tough saying. It continues and defines that further. It says he came into his own. And I've been reading some commentaries about understanding the usage of gender in Greek. And gender is something that we don't have in the English language. Other languages do. So it's like if you're speaking of a male, they'll use a male ending. If you're speaking of a female, they'll use a female ending. In Spanish, it's like roja and rojo. If it's a male, it's rojo, red male, or roja is red female. But in the Greek, there's three genders. There's neuter, which means there's no gender, that it's non-specific. And then we have the masculine, which is specific to male, or it could be covering of both male and female. And then we have the feminine gender, which covers female. And so whenever he first uses this Greek word, idia, he uses it as a neuter. And so when he talks about that, it's non-specific. So he's not saying generally people, but maybe more like property or possession. So it says that he came to his own, like the thing in which he made, he came to. But then after that, it says it came to his own people. And that's why in a lot of the English translations, it says people, because it uses the masculine, covering a more personal, a more specific thing. And it means more like first he came to his own creation, but not that he just came to his own creation, but that he came to his own people, the people whom he covenanted with. And remember that John is a Hebrew, and so his thoughts are from the culture of Israel, Hebraic and Jewish culture. And so when he says that he came to his own people, it means he came to the people that he covenanted with, the people whom he chose out of all of the world to testify to his truth, who should by all means know and recognize the light. And it says, but they did not receive him. Now we got to remember as well that Israel is just a small remnant or a fraction of the whole world. And so they are representative as well of the world. And so not only did he come to the creation which he created, the planet, the stars, the moon, he put himself into physical nature. He exists in a physical world, but he came to the people of the world to show them his love and to show them the characteristics and the beauty of who God is, and they didn't receive him. First, it says they didn't know him. So that's one thing, maybe just to not recognize. I think some translations say that they did not recognize him. But then it's another thing to the people who do or should know him and recognize him, that they didn't receive him. That sounds bad, doesn't it? Sounds bad. But if we continue on, we see it says, but those who do receive him, it says he gave to them the right to become children of God. Those who believe in his name. So we can be children of God. We can be a people under the kingdom of God, and it is only through receiving him. That means knowing him, and then receiving him is that authority that he has, recognizing that kingship. Now, I am putting a lot of things going on here. I'm putting a lot of pressure before we actually expound upon it through what John is going to do through the rest of the gospel. But these are the things that John is saying when he says these things. He says that he gives us the authority, the power, or the right to become children of God. And this is through belief in his name. Now, belief in his name is important because in the past, in the olden days, names were different than what they are now. And we spoke a little bit about that in Genesis, how every time that Rebecca and Leah named their child, it was specific and there was a reason behind it. And that there was name changes often in the Bible as well. When we saw Jacob changing his name, or God changing Jacob's name to Israel, we saw God changing Abram to Abraham and Sarah to Sarai. We see it many times because names had meaning. When God refers to himself, he calls himself El Shaddai, the Almighty, so that you would know a characteristic about him, that he is the most powerful thing in all of the universe. That they would name places because of remembering what it is that God had done for them, or they would give God a name like El Roy, or they give him a name El Shaddai. We've got his name as being Jehovah Rapha. We've got all of these names that he is called because they are characteristics of who he is. And so when it says they believe in his name, that means they believe in who God truly is, that true light, who he is, his characteristics, his nature. And then when you believe in something like that, you trust in it and you follow. He goes on and further clarifies that this children of God is nothing that we can do on our own. It says, and not by bloods, or it could be understood as a sexual relation. Like you can't birth being a child of God. This is not some kind of physical action that we do in order to have children and become a child of God. It also means that it's not by your father being a child of God. It's not by your mother. It's not by your uncle. You know, sometimes we like, man, my uncle was a pastor, man. Yeah, I know it. I'm in the fam. It's not like that, because that's not how you're born into this childhood of God. It also says not by the will of the flesh, which means like not by any real desire that we could accumulate. And so it's not by any way that we could just want to do it. Not that like we like, oh yeah, this is something we want. It's not even born by our own want to do it. It can't happen that way. And then finally it says not by the desire or the will of the husband. And the reason it's specific in saying husband is because in this general category in which John is talking about this birth, it's all about the sexual relationship. The first one being having sex in order to birth a child. Second is that our flesh desires this. This is a normal desire of the flesh. And then finally, in those times, it was always the male that initiated it, the one who had the choice. It's not always, but the majority of the time, the male would initiate it and would be the one to make the choice into whom he would have these relationships with. And so the last one is that it is not by our desire to choose to have this. It's to say, let's do this. Let's get it. Like, I can't accomplish this goal or this will on my own. And so this birth, this coming from um, a child of God to become a child of God, it's not by a family descent. It's not by a will of our own, and it's not by a choice of our own. It says, but it is those who are born of God. This is something that God places upon us. So what's it say about God? Well, first off, it says that God is the one who initiates and gives light. That he gives salvation. And this is what light is as we continue to read light and life, is that it is salvation. It's a relationship with God. It is knowing, having an intimate and personal conversation and community with the God of the universe. God is the one who initiates these things. And it is through him and faith through him, our trust in him to be able to accomplish these tasks, that we have life. So God is the giver of life. What does this say about man? Well, it says that God has made himself known to us, and so we must make this decision to follow. It's because the light, like we talked about in verse 9, is that the light shines on all of us, and it's up to us to say, hey, God has presented this light. Now, how are we going to respond to it? How are we going to respond to it? So the application of today is do you know him today? Do you know God? Have you come into community or relationship with him? Have you trusted in him to lead and guide all aspects of your life? If you have, man, then let's celebrate our adoption. Let's celebrate our childhood. Let's celebrate being children of the God of the universe and being in relationship with the one who created all things. But if you don't know him, believe in his name, trust in his name, receive him, know his goodness. Man, I've got videos up that talks about all of the attributes, well, not all, but some of the attributes of God. And I hope that they would help you to understand who God is. And through that, you might know him and love him. Check those out if you need to. I'll put a link up here. But I appreciate you guys for listening, man. And let's continue as we study through John. It's been good so far. So let's keep going. I'll see you in the next video.